How does it make that sound? A young filly stared at the hypnotized by a gentle music caressing her ears. The small box before her let out a harmony that reminded her of the angels. The warm body next to her grew closer, nuzzling up against her. I don't know all the details myself. An older mare's soothing voice wept through the ears as if the voice itself was trying to hug her. Her voice was soft yet delicate, but it was just like an instrument. Every piece is finely tuned, so that when a chord is stuck, it plays a gentle note. But it only plays one song, the young filly mused as she continued to stare, comforted by the warmth of the other with her. And it seems a little sad. She leaned her head against the bigger body, resting against it. Yes, I suppose it does sound like a little sad. The older mare smiled warmly, her long mane falling on the filly's face. The little filly giggled a little as her hair tickled her face, before moving it out of the way to smile at the music box. But this music box is very special to me. The older mare sighed happily. I like it, the filly smiled happily, closing her eyes as she listened, the melody softly flowing through her ears. She couldn't help but think it was beautiful. Please never forget that I love you. The older mare's voice grew quiet with those words. I know, mother. I love you too. The filly nuzzled against her mother happily. The older mare grew quiet as the filly nuzzled against her mother. There was a silence that filled the air, and only being filled with the gentle and calming yet music from the box. Mother? The filly broke out of silence, but it soon returned. The chimes of the music seemed to slow down, drawing each individual note. Mother, she called again, lifting her head up to try and look for her mother. The older mare had suddenly grew quiet. Mother, say something, the filly pleaded, pushing against her mother with her hooves, trying to get her attention. The mare's body just felt that it was growing colder, wobbling it before falling over. The older mare lay on the floor, her hair looking like cobwebs on the ground, and her coat growing dull, her unmoving form framed against the darkness of the ground. Mother! The filly cried, pushing her hooves against her mother as the music box continued to slow down, each note ringing in her head that something was wrong. The filly moved her hands slowly away from her mother and stared at her hooves, her blood-covered hooves. The body of the mare was withering its way, blood escaping from underneath her body. Mother! 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 The filly cried as tears began to stream down her eyes, shaking her own mother's body to wake her, to tell her that everything was all right. The music from the box died. The body of the young filly's mother turned into dust as it vanished in the wind, leaving nothing but the blood that had been spilled. The filly just shook and cried, tears drenching her cheeks. She touched the bloodstain on the floor, trying to feel any remaining heat that could hold within that her mother was still there. The blood was cold, no sign of life to it. The music box started to play music once more, but it no longer played the sad but beautiful song. The music box hissed a horrifying sound, as if bees suddenly filled the box. The filly looked up into the darkness, terror filling her core. Red eyes gleamed as a presence made itself known. It towed its body over the filly as it drew closer. Its body cloaked in darkness. The darkness itself flickered and flowed off its body, its mouth opening, revealing a gaping hole of white filled with jagged black. With the presence of the creature crushed the filly. She couldn't move. She couldn't breathe. She was paralyzed by everything that stood before her. With a single swift movement, the creature closed the distance, as teeth sunk into the filly's neck, lifting her up and holding her as if a prize. Tears continued to stream down the filly's face as the blood slipped down her body. The creature growled before dropping the filly on top of the dust just of her mother. The filly could only do nothing but stare into the darkness of the world. Even that darkness was soon fading into a separate darkness. The filly's vision was filled with the beast. Its jagged white mouth turned into a grin as it once more drew its teeth at the filly's face. Fluttershy woke up with a scream. She panted heavily as she sat, staring at the pillow in the darkness. The covers hanging over her shoulders, her body soaked in sweat, the cool night that filled the burning, aching lungs. She put a hoof to her face, feeling the fresh tears that began streaming down from her face. She hiccuped softly as she tried to rub them away, feeling the fresh ones wanting freedom as well. Something rustled under the covers next to her as she froze, turning as if she heard a moan of something waking up. "Another one?" Rainbow Dash groaned, sitting up from her spot on the bed, rubbing her eyes. "How many is that now? At least 10? She let out a yawn, obviously still not being used to waking up in the middle of the night constantly. I'm sorry," Fluttershy hiccuped, squeezing her eyes shut as she desperately tried to hold back her tears, her body shaking. "I keep waking you up. I shouldn't have asked you to try to comfort me." Fluttershy stuttered with her words, lumps forming in her throat as tears escaped from her lid-shut eyes. Rainbow put a hoof to her face. She shifted on the bed, before wrapping a hoof comfortably around her mare friend's shoulders. Fluttershy leaned into Rainbow's chest and sobbed softly into her. "Come on, Fluttershy. You should know by now that me sleeping isn't as important as you feeling better," Rainbow Dash said quietly, lowering her head closer to Fluttershy's. Fluttershy didn't reply. She only continued with her soft sobs. "So me spending the last few nights here hasn't helped me with your nightmares? That's no big deal. It just shows us how serious this is," Rainbow said, trying her best to offer comforting words, something she wasn't so used to. Fluttershy could only let out a whimper in response. The nightmare terrified her. She was barely able to fall asleep anymore, knowing that they were waiting for her inside her own mind. She didn't want to sleep anymore. She wanted to stay up and try to be rid of the dreams, but her body was exhausted. It demanded sleep, but her mind screamed to stay awake. The conflict inside her only brought her more tears. Rainbow looked out in the darkness of Fluttershy's room as she tried desperately to think of something to do or say. "If only I was smarter," Rainbow Dash thought to herself, as if a light bulb had been turned on in Rainbow's mind. "Fluttershy, in the morning let's go see Twilight. I'm sure she can help you with these nightmares. I mean, she's got all kinds of books, and I'm sure she'll have something that can help us with this." Rainbow spoke eagerly, but softly, making sure Fluttershy heard her. Do you really think she can help?" Fluttershy asked, managing to wipe her face as her sobs softened. "Yeah, of course she can," Rainbow said confidently, nuzzling up against Fluttershy. "She's Twilight. Even if she can't find the answer, she can ask Celestia. We'll get rid of these nightmares before you know it." "Thank you," Fluttershy smiled softly, as the tears finally stopping. "Hey, what's a mare fan for?" Rainbow grinned, kissing Fluttershy in the forehead. "I still don't feel like sleeping, though," Fluttershy said, staring at the pillow of her bed. It was still a deep sleep in the middle of the night. Rainbow said in thought. She wasn't sure of what to say. She looked up at the ceiling as she thought about it. She then let out a small shrug, unintentionally, as if thought rolled in through her mind. "I guess it's now or never then." "Huh?" Fluttershy said as she continued, as she felt herself being pushed down onto the bed. She looked up at Rainbow Dash as she laid on her back, Rainbow climbing on top of Fluttershy before kissing Fluttershy deeply. "Don't worry, I'll take your mind off those nightmares so you can finish resting." Rainbow grinned, blushing deeply. Fluttershy blushed in return, surprised but accepting as she closed her eyes, her lips meeting once more. "Shouldn't you clear the clouds?" Fluttershy said, yawning as her and Rainbow walked through the town. The warm sun only slightly obscured by the clouds lingering around the sky. "This is more important," Rainbow Dash said, rubbing Fluttershy's head lightly. I can hear the clouds snap. Let's get you feeling better first. Rainbow grinned. I suppose. Fluttershy rubbed her eyes, still trying to rid of them sleepiness. She had started to develop bags under her eyes from the lack of sleep, but nothing severe. Suppose nothing is more important, Rainbow said, trying once more to build Fluttershy's confidence. Just focus on getting better. Everything else can wait until then. Getting better? Is Fluttershy sick? Rainbow and Dash and Fluttershy stopped as they looked behind them, seeing Pinkie Pie standing behind them with a basket of hoof filled with letters. Oh, hey, Pinkie, Rainbow said, turning to smile at her pink friend. And no, she's really not sick. She's just been having some bad nightmares lately, so we're going to see Twilight if she can help. The silence was almost deafening despite the bravery. The basket in Pinkie's hoofs fell, hitting the ground with what seemed to be like a loud thud, letters spilling out before it. The nightmares? Pinkie stuttered, with a look of shock on her face. Pinkie, you dropped your basket, Rainbow said, pointed out to it. Oh, no time for that, Pinkie said quickly, rushing to Fluttershy's side. She looked at Fluttershy over, causing the yellow Pegasus to flinch a little before Pinkie took a look into her face. How bad are the nightmares? How long have you been having them? They're awful, Fluttershy squeaked, answering through intimidated by Pinkie's actions. I've been waking up crying for the past week and a half now. I thought Rainbow Dash could help make them go away, but they still haven't stopped. So Rainbow suggested we go see Twilight. Pinkie stared, mouth agape at Fluttershy. Fluttershy then began to sweat a little, not understanding what was going through the pink pony's head. Pinkie Pie then looked serious for a moment, before turning her head to Fluttershy, as if she was in a serious mental comprehension. I see what's going to see Twilight. Is something natural assumption to make? Pinkie mumbled to herself. Pinkie Pie, what's going on? You're acting even stranger than you normally do. Rainbow looked at Pinkie Pie, confused by her actions. It's nothing, Pinkie lied, stepping back from Fluttershy. I'm going to see Twilight with you. It sounded more like a demand than an offer. Oh no, it's okay, Pink. I'm going with you, Pinkie interrupted Fluttershy, not backing down. Oh, okay. Fluttershy meekly agreed as Pinkie then nodded, taking the lead and heading to Fluttershy's house. Rainbow Dash then looked at one of the scattered letters on the ground, picking it up and looking at the pink envelope curiously. What's gotten into Pinkie? Fluttershy asked, looking at Rainbow Dash, confused of what just happened. I don't know, but if she's just putting off inviting us to a party for it. Rainbow showed the envelope to her. Wow, this is serious, Fluttershy said in a bit of shock. Hey, come on in. We need to go see Twilight's house, like, right now, Pinkie called out to the two mares after realizing that they haven't immediately followed. I think it's best if we do what she says for now, Rainbow said, not wanting to chance thinking what else serious Pinkie might do. Right, Fluttershy agreed, as the two of them quickly followed after Pinkie. Oh, hey, Pinkie. Twilight, we got a serious problem here. Pinkie barged into Twilight's house without giving the purple unicorn a chance to pose a greeting. And what I mean by problem is the big one, like the last time when I visited you with the problem. Huh? Do you mean the nightmares are back? Twilight asked a little confused, looking Pinkie over. But your mane is fine. Oh no, the problem isn't with me this time, Pinkie said, pointing out at the door. She had just so casually walked through. Twilight turned her head to see Rainbow Dash quickly walking in as well. Geez, was Pinkie running here really important? Rainbow huffed as she moved past Twilight. This is a big deal, sure, but Fluttershy's not good at high-speed pursuits. Oh, but there was a need to rush, Dashy. Trust me on this one. We need to fix this ASAP. Pinkie tried to get Rainbow to understand. Is Dash having a problem? Twilight asked, looking curiously at her rainbow-haired friend. Oh, no, it's not her, Pinkie said, pointing to the door once more. Twilight then turned once more to see Fluttershy slowly making in her way as well. Sorry for the interruption, Twilight. I hope we aren't disturbing you from anything important. Fluttershy apologized. No, it's no trouble, Fluttershy. I was just catching up on some studying. Twilight smiled comfortably. But is something really troubling you, Fluttershy? Oh yes, well, actually, that's why we came to see you, Fluttershy said, scraping her foot against the ground. I've been having sleeping trouble, and I was hoping you could help. Trouble sleeping? Nothing, Rainbow Dash said, moving to stand next to Fluttershy. Fluttershy's been having some nasty nightmares that have been keeping her up. She's unstable to sleep, and as the dreads are having her to go back to bed. We were hoping you could help out, Twilight, Dash explained in more detail. Well, I do happen to have one spell I know that will work. Twilight's words then became muffled as the pink hoof was jammed into her mouth. No, we're not using that spell, Pinkie explained. Blech, why not? Twilight asked, after removing the hoof from her mouth. 'Cause we're not, what Pinkie said, closing her eyes, as if not wanting to budge. We have to find some other way to help Fluttershy. But the spell worked perfectly so well last time. Why shouldn't I use it now? Twilight was very confused. Pinkie had explained to her that that spell had let her come to the terms with tragedy of her sister's passing. But she hadn't explained what exactly happened during the spell that led to the realization. All Twilight had been seen during the delve was it appeared to be a warped picture amidst a foggy backdrop. As she tried to study the picture, but it kept changing before her, till the mind of Weevil disconnected itself in a flash of light. Trust me, Twilight, using it on Fluttershy would end badly, so we're going to help her without it, Pinkie explained. But it'd be so much easier to use a spell. It only takes a few minutes and I'll have helped her with the nightmares. Doesn't that make sense? Twilight tried to battle with Pinkie with her logic, and already a losing battle. Even if it does, it's still not happening, Pinkie retorted back. Fluttershy and Rainbow looked at each other, very confused as Pinkie and Twilight went back and forth. They had no idea what their friends were talking about. So, what exactly are we going to help Fluttershy with, then? Rainbow finally asked, interrupting the back and forth between the two bickering ponies. Fine. I'll go get my copy of my dream's psychological understanding, Pinkie, Twilight said, walking away from the pink mare, who just sat there looking victorious. Thank you, Twilight. I assure you this will be the best for everyone. Pinkie then bounced over to Fluttershy, putting a hoof around her shoulders while offering a comfort smile. Don't worry, Fluttershy. I promise we'll make your bad dreams go away. You really think this will work? Fluttershy then looked at Pinkie with hope. If any pony can help make things better, it's Twilight, I'm sure of it. Pinkie smiled happily. All right, Twilight said, returning with a floating copy of the book, opening it up and flipping through several places. The first thing I should see is what kind of dreams you're having. Since we won't be jumping straight into the Mind Delve spell, there are other solutions I listen here that might work, depending on how severity of your dreams, Twilight explained before placing the book down on the table on the center of her house. Oh, how will you know that? Fluttershy asked curiously. There's a spell in this book that will let me see the dreams you've been having. I'll be able to judge for myself how severe they are, Twilight said, walking over to Fluttershy. But, Fluttershy began to protest. Don't worry, Fluttershy. Twilight knows what she is doing, Rainbow said, as she was trying to comfort the worried Pegasus. Of course, now this will only take a moment. Twilight smiled, not wanting Fluttershy to give another response, before gently sweeping her hair away from her forehead, tapping her own glowing horn against Fluttershy's forehead. I don't want to fly! I don't want to fly! I don't want to fly! The words screamed again and again, bouncing in her skull, driving her mad. Her wings were beating as fast as strong as they could, despite every ounce of her being telling her to stop them. Her whole body was crying out for relief. Pain filling in her back and legs. Her wings were bent, horribly mishappened, not even looking like they should fit her, but they carried her for the sky. Tears swept across her face as every flap and sent pain shooting through their back, scratching away at her mind, eroding her sanity. A loud roar pierced her ears as she shook her whole being. Her head had painfully but slowly turned to look at her behind, as if a giant figure appeared from behind the clouds, billowing the smoke as it soared through at the high speed straight for her. Her legs failed, feeling as if they have movement, snapped a bone, and tore in her muscles. A large beast opens its jaw before its gigantic teeth went straight down her flesh. She wanted to scream, but no voice came to her. She wanted to close her eyes, but her body would not obey her. She wanted to shut down and die, but her body did not comply. The swirls of torture screams filled every inch of her. Twisted faces and horrified cries screamed out for her. One word repeated itself endlessly in her mind was pain. There was nothing to dispicture. Only the red horror swirled around her. It bellowed and cried. It screeched and hollered, but its suffering would not end. Neither would hers. Everything assaulted her mind as she felt pain, as every fiber of her being was being destroyed by the horror before her. Her knife came down, and it struck its target. She brought the knife back up and she swung it down at her. Her target hit her again. Her actions kept repeated again and again, one fluid motion after the other. Her knife struck the body before her. She was coated already, coated in the warm liquid that she had caused to splatter all over. Each fresh strike sent another burst of warm liquids down her body. A smile was on her face, the one that had been there for a long time since it started. She made fresh holes and fresh liquid with each strike, plunging the knife in and out of the pony, before she seemed to be bringing her satisfaction. They deserved this. She deserved to be the one to do this to them. This is how it's supposed to be. She plunged the knife down one last time, panting as she looked excitedly at her work. Punctured body didn't move or twitch. It just lay before her. Her body would never move again. She tossed the knife to the side and leaned forward, nuzzling the body as she smiled. This was love. Twilight stepped back as the memories of the dreams filled her mind. She grimaced as her stomach did a flip in a knot forming in her throat. There were horrific dreams, dreams filled with pain, suffering, insanity, and loss. They weren't just simple nightmares. No, she'd been having dreams like this before. Are you okay, Twilight? Fluttershy asked nervously. Not sure what to expect Twilight's reaction to be. Yeah, I'm fine. Twilight managed to stay nervously, not sure what to expect, but after swallowing the knot in her throat. You're awfully pale for being okay, Rainbow said, looking at Twilight worriedly. She didn't think the nightmares would have been so bad as to make Twilight lose a shade of color. Well, you didn't go stumbling back into the bookcase this time. They were not as bad? Pinkie asked, tilting her head curiously. Oh, they're very bad. Twilight rubbed her head a little. But they're bad in a different way. I don't think I could ever make an accurate comparison. At the very least, they felt the same intensity. So what do I do? Fluttershy asked meekly. Hold on, I will need to consult the book, Twilight said, shaking her head lightly, before levitating herself over, flipping through some of the pages and reading a few passages. There's a lot of spells in here for minor nightmares, soothing remedies, relaxation methods, normal and magical psychological evolutions, but Twilight sighed and stared at Pinkie. And was that what I just saw? There's only one spell here strong enough to find out what's happening in Fluttershy's mind. Are you absolutely sure? There's no other spell in that book? Pinkie asked, desperate to not have to turn to that answer. I'm sure, Pinkie. The mind as well as spell is going to be our best solution. Why are you so against using that spell, Pinkie? Rainbow asked, looking very strangely at the Earth Pony friend. You said it helped you before. Why shouldn't we use it on Fluttershy? Pinkie was silent. She thought about it for a moment, before looking seriously at Twilight. Twilight read to me the spell's description. Twilight flipped through the exact pages of the spell and began to read. The Mind Well spell is used in cases where the nightmares or psychological problems are not so easily discernible. This often means the problem is rooted deep within the patient's subconsciousness. and it cannot be obtained through the normal psychological methods without spending a very long time treating the patient. The spell allows the user to shorten the necessary time and need in order to bring the patient to a full recovery. Each patient and the spell is used under experiences different results, as the subconsciousness is modeled by a patient who owns it. No two patients will likely experience the same recovery under the use of the spell. Pinky thought about those words carefully. Something seemed pretty odd with those spinning wheels in her head. Okay, Pinky said, finally breaking from the thought. We can use that Mind Dwell spell on Fluttershy. On one condition, though. What? Twilight asked, blinking a little confused. You have to find a way to put me into Fluttershy's mind when you do it. You want to go into my mind? Fluttershy asked, very surprised. Yes, I won't let you go through this alone, Fluttershy. I am going to be there with you, to help you with your problem, Pinky said, turning her head slightly, shifting her mane so Fluttershy could see it better. I wore this red ribbon as a testament that my friends are dear to me. That means, if they're in trouble, then I'm going to help them. And I'm going to see through this, Fluttershy, so you not only feel better, so you don't have to be alone while doing it. Pinky smiled. Well then, guess I'm going in too, Rainbow said, stepping closer to Fluttershy. I just can't let my mare friend go through something like this without me. I'm going to be there with her until the very end. Rainbow grinned, nuzzling against Fluttershy. Fluttershy blushed as she smiled softly. Thank you, both of you. Ugh, Twilight put a hoof to her face. I don't even know how to do that. Twilight just said as she walked off towards the bookshelf. If you guys are going to have to give me a moment, there's nothing in this Dreams of Psychological Understanding that explains how to link minds together, she said as she began to levitate the books off to the shelf, checking each little title before pushing them off to the side. There was a distant sound of her mumbling something about how she shouldn't have sent Spike on a shopping trip that day. This could take a while, Rainbow said, looking at the other two mares. Let's play some games to pass the time, Pinky chimed happily. That sounds like fun. Fluttershy smiled. King me! Pinky grinned happily, having victoriously jumped over several of Dash's pieces before arriving at the opposite end of the checkerboard. Man, Pinky, how are you so good at this? Rainbow furrowed her brow as she looked at the board. She was clearly losing for the 5th time now, and Pinky had just obtained her 3rd king. Years of practice, Dashy, Pinky chuckled as she waited for her opponent's next move. I think you've been doing that very well, Fluttershy smiled, having to enjoy watching the matches. Okay, Twilight suddenly declared very loudly, putting the book that she had been studying vigorously down. I think I have got something. By using the mixture of various spells, I should be able to get all of you to share in Fluttershy's mind dwell. I don't know how it will work. At the moment it's all fury, but I have made some furies to work before, and I could do it again. Twilight nodded, walking towards her friends. Oh good, I was getting tired of this game anyway, Rainbow said, standing up, waving a hoof at the board. Only because you were losing, Pinky chuckled, before hopping up as well, before turning to Twilight and looking at the little Sirius. Are you absolutely sure you can get this to work, Twilight? Absolutely. When have you ever known me to mess up a spell once of how confident I was on how it worked? Twilight asked curiously. Pinky put a hoof in her chin as she looked off into the side, mumbling under her breath. Well, not in the community. What was that? Pinky asked, not having to hear her very well. Nothing, Pinky smiled, before turning away to look at Fluttershy. Are you ready for this, Fluttershy? I guess I'm ready as I'll ever be, she said, walking next to Pinky. Well, I'll have you feel better in no time. Just you wait, Rainbow smiled, standing next to Fluttershy as something smiling in her confident smile. Alright, here it goes. Twilight's horn lit up, glowing bitterly as she concentrated. She then walked up to her 3 friends, who stood before her. Before gently tapping her own horn against their foreheads, a thin blue line that grew attached from her horn stretched across the foreheads with each tap. The light surrounding her horn grew brighter as she stepped forward before tapping her horn against Fluttershy's head. And with the instant, the world felt like it slipped under from Fluttershy's hooves. Everything felt hazy as her body almost felt numb. She couldn't keep track of her surroundings, though. She felt as if she was falling. The only indication she felt like she was moving was the sensation of the wind rolling around her. She tumbled and fell through a hazy fog in her mind, unable to comprehend anything. She let out a sharp gasp, finally air returning to her lung. She pondered for a moment, before her eyes fluttered open. She got her bearings slowly as the world became into view before her. She was still inside of Twilight's house. However, it was missing that particular purple unicorn. Twilight? What's the big deal? Let's spell... It was Rainbow's voice she heard next. She turned to her head and saw her mare friend already standing up, looking around for Twilight. Wait, where did she go? I don't think I could ever get used to that. It was Pinky's turn to speak up. Rainbow and Fluttershy looked behind them to see her groggily standing up, but I'm glad to see that she got it to work. She then smiled, seeing her two friends. What's going on, Pinky? Where's Twilight? Rainbow asked, looking around, confused of her missing unicorn friend. That's normal. She's not going to be here with us, Pinky said, looking around quickly. She then got up and ran into a nearby window, looking out of it. She grew quiet as she stared out the window. Pinkie Pie? Fluttershy asked, looking at her friend oddly. This is what I went through when Twilight helped you? Rainbow asked curiously. There was silence for a moment. Rainbow and Fluttershy both looked at each other, a little confused, before Pinky finally spoke back up. Yes, she turned away from the window, looking at her friends with a serious look. It's almost exactly the same I went through, and this is exactly the reason why I said I had to come. Pinky then said, galloping across the library to a shelf, before pulling a map from it. What do you mean? Fluttershy asked, as Pinky brought the map over to the table. Fluttershy and Rainbow walking up and looking at it. We're going to need to keep a track of where we are, Pinky explained, pointing a map of Ponyville that was unfurled before them. Pinky then stood up from the map, seeing that a big lay on the table as well. Fluttershy, you should be the one to take that bag, Pinky explained, pointing to it. Why? Pinky asked, confused and grabbing the bag, pulling it closer, opening it. Trust me, we're going to need it. Is there some kind of instrument inside of it? Pinky asked, seeing Fluttershy look inside. As almost if to answer Pinky's words, a soft but almost haunting melody began to play from the bag. Fluttershy carefully reached in and pulled out an old music box that was playing a soft tune. Fluttershy began to stare at the music box in shock. This is the music box my mother owned. What is it doing here? Rainbow asked, curiously looking at it. I don't know. I lost it a long time ago. How did it get here? Fluttershy wondered quietly. The music slowly faded to a stop as she continued to stare at the music box. Pinky then rolled up the map of Ponyville before placing it in the bag. Come on, let's head out, Pinky said, smiling at Fluttershy before heading out of the front door. Head out? Where are we going? Rainbow looked confused at her pink friend. We're going to Fluttershy's cottage. If we're going to find answers, I think that's the first place we need to check, Pinky explained as she opened the door. Answers to the nightmares? Rainbow fought in confusion. What does this strange place have to do with them? And why are we even there? Fluttershy then gently put the music box back in the bag as she listened to Rainbow Dash's questions. She then closed the bag, which had a clasp of blue and pink butterfly. She then gently lifted up the bag, placed it onto her back to carry. I can't say for sure what this place is. I think we're inside Fluttershy's mind, but at the same time, it feels so solid to be just our imaginations. Pinky scuffed the floor softly as she explained. The only thing I know for sure is that we need to be ready for anything. Pinky opened the front door, stepping outside. Let's follow her, Fluttershy said, smiling at Rainbow. She seems to know what she's talking about, so we should follow her till we get our bearings. All right, I suppose that makes sense, Rainbow said, before following her after Pinkie. Fluttershy then followed the same, stepping out of the front door of Twilight's house. Hey, what's with the weather? Rainbow cried out in confusion. Fluttershy stood in shock. Ponyville had fallen into a thick fog. No buildings could be seen for the past few feet in front of their eyes.